Good morning, everyone. This is Lady Dragon speaking. It's Sunday, January 26th. It's 11:35 a.m. We're continuing our keynotes. But this one was a long title. There's a lot of people from Detroit, Michigan, and it's to help women that start their own company. So that should be very interesting. Looking forward to listen to it. Euh, Ça, c'est un keynote. Il y avait un long titre, là, j'ai raccourci ça. Là. Mais il y aura plein de monde qui va en parler. Puis le but de ce keynote-là, c'est aider les dames qui partent leur propre business. Puis ils vont parler de comment ils aident les femmes. Fait que ça va être très intéressant. Fait qu'on écoute. Enjoy.
So I couldn't be more excited than to have our Lieutenant Governor of Michigan, join us for a conversation about innovation here at CES 2025. I have the pleasure in my role. We manage two amazing programs here at CES, the Leaders in Technology program, which brings government leaders to CES to experience technology, but also our Innovation for All program, which focuses on making sure that women and diverse voices are here and amplified at CES. And that also includes our Innovation for All Fund. So that brings me the opportunity to bring those two things together. To have you here as a part of our program, but also I'd love for you to talk a little bit about why you're here at CES, except maybe our invitation, but why is it so important for you to be here and represent the state of Michigan?
Look, Tiffany, thank you so much, and thank the CTA for the leadership that's been shown for a generation now of technology leaders and professionals who have come to CES to be inspired and to be better connected. I'm here to, first of all, represent the state of Michigan, which is today and always has been a technology-forward state, a state of inventors and innovators and creators and connectors. And we want to come and tell the Michigan story. Now, I've been to CES every year I've been in office, and it's kind of a home game for me because I'm an engineer. I'm a software developer by training. I'm a two-time recovering entrepreneur. I love people with ideas, who create businesses, who invent the future, and who make things happen. And so CES is just an amazing environment to be in. And I'm so proud just to be here to learn things, to be inspired, to attract every single company at CES to come and invest in the state of Michigan. We're actually really proud that even yesterday, a company called ETAL Design, we announced that they are bringing they're establishing their North American headquarters in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. We just agreed on the deal yesterday and was able to announce that. It's going to create dozens of jobs to start, but then hundreds to come. So this is why I come to CES, to create opportunity for the future.
And people may think of Michigan as just mobility. It's the auto industry, proud of it, proud of our heritage, and it's evolving, and there's so much innovation in that space. But it's not just about mobility in Michigan, right?
That's right. So in Michigan, we have seen amazing growth over the years in life sciences, amazing growth in freshwater technology. You see, Michigan is home to 21% of the freshwater on the globe. So we figured we might as well be really good at water in the state of Michigan. So we established something called the Freshwater Research and Innovation Center in Traverse City, Michigan, which for those who know their Michigan geography is up here. The hand works real well. And this is a center of excellence for research and development for everything from marine autonomy, marine electrification, sensing technology, and all the other ways that we can do water management in an excellent way. And so that's just yet another round where Michigan is leading the way.
And shortly we'll be joined by a couple of friends who have an incredible Michigan story. But one thing I have been impressed about, and one of the reasons why this panel came together, is that I had the opportunity to go to the opening of Michigan Central, and more importantly, New Lab, and talk about the energy. You don't necessarily think of Michigan as a home of startups, but there's so much energy happening, and how do we make sure that we are investing in that ecosystem? But it was really exciting to have that conversation there. It's something you would expect if you were in San Francisco in the Valley, but it was happening in the city of Detroit, which was so special.
It's amazing. You know, the group Startup Genome did an analysis of startup markets and ecosystems around the country. and they found that the city of Detroit was the #1 emerging startup ecosystem in the country. That's due to the density of startups, the type of investing that is happening, and this amazing epicenter called Michigan Central. Michigan has one of these historic train stations that exist in places like Chicago and Penn Station in New York and others, where ours was called Michigan Central. And it happens to be in the neighborhood that I live in Detroit. This is the train station that represented opportunity for people like my grandparents when they came up to Michigan from Alabama as part of the Great Migration in the 1940s. Well, that train station had fallen into disrepair, and it was abandoned for about 40 years. Well, it reopened just a couple of years ago in this amazing way. It is the premier office space in the country. And adjacent to it is this amazing startup accelerator called New Lab, where we have companies in everything from mobility to material science to software and artificial intelligence that are, again, creating solutions and connections of tomorrow. This is an anchor, a place where people can come, run into one another, and find their next co-founder, to find their first customer, to find their next investor. It's a platform for growth, and that's exactly what we're going to generate for years to come out of New Lab, out of Michigan Central, and out of Detroit.
And speaking of investors, I think there's a certain investor that has an office at New Lab, and I think we're going to have them join us on the stage to tell us a little bit more. If you have not heard of Union Heritage, we're so proud of the work that they're doing. And to join us on the stage, we have Sophia Bush and Nia Batts from Union Heritage, who are going to join us for a conversation. And it will be led by Megan Hauk, who basically created the Innovation for All program.
It's hi, honey.
Who will lead us in this conversation. So let's get to it.
Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate it. And welcome. We're so excited to have this conversation today on inclusive investing. The discussion will explore how inclusive investment strategies are shaping Detroit's entrepreneurial landscape, fostering innovation, and empowering diverse business leaders. Our panelists today will share some insights on building an inclusive ecosystem that fuels economic growth and opportunity for all. Welcome. All right, let's just start right with introductions. Neil, let's start with you. Can you share a little bit about yourself, and then also in your own words, what brought you to CES today to talk about inclusive investing?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for having us. My name is Nia Batts, and I am the Managing Director and Chief Operating Officer of Union Heritage, which is an investment management firm headquartered in Detroit, in Michigan, in the best state, but we're really happy to be here with you guys in Nevada. My background is in media and entertainment, and so I spent most of my career in-house at the company that's now Paramount, really learning how to tell stories for different types of audiences. And sometimes it's the story that you might see on a screen, it's the product that you might be experiencing in a variety of manners, and that really led to some investment in the consumer space as an angel. And then over a series of years and moving back to Detroit and us engaging in entrepreneurial efforts in Detroit as well, I ultimately had the opportunity to join our family's firm and to, with our team, build out an additional line of business to our public equity business, a venture capital strategy that focuses on early stage investment in Michigan.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah,
thank you.
Casual.
I mean,
And if she doesn't brag a bit more, I'm going to get to it when we get back.
Yeah, that's always my thing. I'm like, let me just brag about my best friend for a minute. Hi, everyone. Thrilled to be back here with all of you. See some familiar faces in the audience. My name is Sophia Bush. I met Nia long ago when we were, babies in media. I was working on my first television series. My day job is often being an actor, and that has led me into very interesting spaces, and being an incredibly motivated by data research nerd, which it turns out not a lot of people in the world of my day job are in the extra way that I seem to be, has led me into really cool spaces with a lot of amazing tech folks. And while being her best friend is probably my proudest achievement on my resume, when we were in our early 20s attending conferences that were not this cool or this well lit, we decided we wanted to try to save the world, and we did so much incredible cause work and so much incredible philanthropic work and traveled the world really activating young audiences. And eventually you start to realize that if you want to understand who has power and who doesn't, why certain problems need fixing, we would be remiss not to touch on climate, as we do invest in climate tech. And we are currently in a crisis. We apologize for being a bit late. I had to evacuate my parents this morning. They are fine.
Oh, thank goodness.
But it was scary. And we started to realize that if you're really attempting to look at the solutions to problems, the root of any solution is what's being funded and what isn't. What money is changing hands in what direction, and who's being denied resources versus who's being given them. And because we've had the great privilege of angel investing since our late 20s together, we really realized that we're very often two of the only women in many of the rooms we're in. And while it was great to kind of cowboy up for a while and throw a check where we could, when we could, we realized a bigger holistic strategy and actually changing what allocators look like and where they're based could have much larger effects, and we could both do well and do good.
Amazing. Yes, I feel like I've also followed your journey, both of your journeys, through that angel investment period too, and some of the products that came out are just incredible. I feel like I have a couple of them in my house.
We love that.
Yes. Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? And we'll get into your journey in a little bit, but just to let everybody know exactly who you are and what led you here today.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate that. And it's always good to be joined by Nia and Sophia. These two women are amazing leaders, not only in Detroit and Michigan, but frankly, are setting the pace for how investors should approach decision-making around the country. And we're very proud that they have chosen to call Michigan home and have that be the basis of their work and what drives them. And so much so, in fact, that in my role as Lieutenant Governor, I bring a different lens to the work, being an engineer, being a software developer, being a person who has started and sold to technology businesses. There are zero other people in the country that have my background who are in state elected office. And so, but I see that as an asset though, not a liability, because I think it enables me to be able to work with people differently, but also it enables us to recognize and take advantages of opportunities in Michigan. And one I want to highlight in particular is that a few years ago, when the federal government made available a set of resources in a program called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, the opportunity that we took in Michigan was to say that, well, because we want to broaden the set of entrepreneurs and people with ideas who are able to land investment, we need to change how we approach investing in Michigan and change that environment. So we decided to apply to the federal government and say we want to use these SSBCI dollars to particularly help and support the types of entrepreneurs and investors who have been left out of opportunities like this in the past. People who couldn't be eligible for everything from bank loans to let alone get venture capital. And the federal government responded. The Biden-Harris administration awarded the state of Michigan. We were one of the first 5 states to get these resources. And we specifically wanted to use them to support investors who have not been historically investors. That means Black-owned firms, that means women-owned firms, et cetera. And I was really proud that the first award that we were able to announce with those resources was the support of Union Heritage because of what they represent. So we're really proud that, again, Michigan, we are changing the reality, changing the truth of who makes those decisions and how, resourcing it and showing that the state of Michigan can be a better partner in terms of changing that truth and reality and impacting the ecosystem by playing a different role. And I think that it is only the beginning of what's possible and what we can do. And so I'm so proud to be with them, so proud to be here to tell this story, and so proud to do it in the context of this amazing conference that I have wanted to come to ever since I was in college.
Amazing, thank you. Tiffany,
So
I know why you're here, but
I can come to CS every year. But I was born and raised in Detroit, and entrepreneurship has been a through line of my entire life, mostly because my mother was an entrepreneur by necessity. And there had no investors, and it was mostly, again, out of necessity. And, it was during a hard time in Detroit when people were moving out. And I eventually moved to Washington, D.C., and you would have never, at that time, had Detroit on a stage at CS talking about what you need to do like Detroit. So it's something I'm very proud of. But at CTA, we have the opportunity to have our Innovation for All Fund, which we will talk more about. But CTA, the association that puts on CES, we represent 1,300 companies within the entire tech ecosystem, but 80% of those companies are small businesses and startups, with the thought that if you have an idea, you should, it's all merit, but if you have an idea, you should have the opportunity to see it to success and hopefully contribute to a better, consumer good, to make someone's life better. But as you mentioned, you can be the most merited person in the world, have the greatest idea, but if you don't have access to networks, it doesn't matter. And so I'm glad that CTA took the opportunity to create our own fund, and we'll talk more. And so I came back for the Michigan Central event, and I was just amazed at what was happening in the city of Detroit. And I said, we need to do that here at CES. And I was so excited that my partner, Graham, who's always here at CES, that we could do this all together.
Amazing, thank you. Yes, agree. Okay, so this panel is focused on inclusive investing, especially around driving growth. How do you define inclusive investing? I feel like this term it's been around for a while, but how do you specifically define inclusive investing, and then how do you measure success? Nia, do you want to start?
Sure. I mean, I think of, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, this idea that, talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And so when we think about how to build a more inclusive ecosystem, I think that's necessary to have any strategy when it comes to inclusive investing. And that means that it has to be a collaborative process. We have to make sure that we are listening to one another. We have to make sure that resources are disseminated in ways that allow for opportunities where there haven't previously been opportunities. And I think we also have to really understand how and where we can create value in the ecosystem and in the investments that we make. And I love that you use the term inclusive investing, because oftentimes we kind of shy away from this term impact investing. And that's only because that's not specifically what we do. It's that we think that there is a tremendous amount of value to be captured in places that other folks don't necessarily think to look or look first. We've been value investors for 35 years in the public markets and that side of the business, and those fundamentals really do, they're at the root of even how we invest on the venture side as well. And so if you believe that value can be created in places where communities, founders have been under-resourced, you have to look at the entire landscape of your ecosystem and figure out how you can build solutions so that we're funding the best ideas, and that doesn't always happen. That's a very confronting process for people. I think that, we're doing a really great job in Michigan every day trying to get closer towards the conditions that what I believe are going to make Michigan and Detroit in particular really the best place to start a business. And so when you ask about what brought me to CES, which I didn't have an opportunity to really answer the first time, it really is the people. It's the people from Detroit, or that fall in love with Detroit, that come and see the potential of what's there, that come and see that we are cars, but we're more than just cars, that the future of inclusive innovation is really happening in Michigan. We're the fastest growing demographic of people identify as being 2 or more races. When we unfortunately were dealing with the climate crisis on the West Coast earlier today. We have to also think about what a future-proof economy looks like, where we're going to be able to build sustainable businesses in the future. And so inclusive investing is really about holding all of those things at the same time, making sure that the conditions of the environment are such that you can actually foster true collaboration and not be afraid to invest aggressively in strategies and places and spaces and in people who may previously not have received the same level of investment.
Yeah, that right there is everything. That's a great answer.
And I think it requires being willing to expand the way you look at things. Let's be very frank. Very often, if Nia and I go to take a meeting, We don't, as she said, we don't say we're impact investors, but people look at two women, you know, we're a multiracial group. We are the only majority Black-owned and majority women-owned venture capital fund in the entire state of Michigan.
That part, that's what I was waiting for Nia to talk about.
You know, and we come from all sorts of diverse backgrounds in-house with our team, and people will say, oh, it's so neat you're doing impact. And we're like, so interesting that you ascribed that to us. There's this idea that if you check any diversity box, you're not doing business the same way the guys do business, meaning like the pale, male, and stale guys. No offense to any of you who identify that way in the room. You're here, so you're lovely and cool. But it's a very interesting thing when people make decisions about how serious they should take you based on these ideas. And for us, we just understand that value, as Nia said, is not being looked at accurately. Even if I take my TV day job world, right? Like I have to be very bi-coastal. I have to be between LA and New York for work. But what does the TV industry not do? Film anything in LA or New York because it's too expensive. We film all over the country, from North Carolina to New Mexico to Detroit. And when we think about building a robust American economy, if we're only building it on the coasts, we're going to collapse the center of the country. The center of the country, which, as all of us who love Detroit know, is the most beautiful, incredible, unbelievable ecosystem. Go to the Upper Peninsula, you'll never want to leave. And Michigan has so many resources that are natural. We have such an incredible, you know, budding economy and everything from life sciences to technology to AI. And we also have the highest number of engineers per capita in America outside of Silicon Valley. And the value from everything from our affordable housing to the Vibe, which post the Michigan Central opening was called Unmatched in print, we agree. It makes sense for us, not just because we care about the place, but when you think about your ROI, the return on investment in a place like Michigan is going to be much higher than anything you're going to try to build in San Francisco right now.
And the one thing I think I would talk about inclusive investing is, one, it's investing. You are trying to make money, just clear, like just clear. It is not a philanthropic exercise, right? That's what we have 501c3, and we have a great CTA Foundation that does that great work. But when we look at our fund, it's like, it's more about your blind spots. Like, what is somebody in the Valley not seeing? You know, I give the person who made the app that allows me to make my hair appointment, thank you. Like, but someone, it was a blind spot that somebody didn't see. As a business wise, I can't call. But it's, you know, the types of, particularly if you look at women's health, what blind spots, because it's a very homogeneous group of venture capitalists who may not speak the same language and appreciate the products or services that we may need. But it's also, like you said, geographic. So, you know, Detroit is still leading in automotive, but there's so much innovation in automotive. So how is someone perhaps in the Valley going to appreciate the nuances of the automotive sector and put a layer of tech on it? So it's really about the blind spots and what traditional VCs may be missing because they don't even know what the problem is that you're solving for.
Exactly.
Let me try to combine sort of something that three of y'all said and what might be a little crass, but I think that this notion of inclusive investing is basically saying that we think y'all get to make money too. And like if an investor says no to an entrepreneur, what they're saying is you don't get to make money with that idea. I'm not going to help you make money. Well, if we believe that everybody should be able to make money, because like you said, like investing means I'm trying to make more money than I put in. And if we believe that there are people with ideas everywhere, and if we believe that there are people with ideas from different walks of life that are good, then we should create the conditions and the platform and the mechanism for those people to have a chance to make money. Now, some of them ain't gonna work. I started and sold 2 businesses. I started more than 2 businesses. The other ones failed, okay? And every other entrepreneur got the same story in that regard. Nobody's one for one. But because we can actually, we have the opportunity, if we make a different choice, to say that everybody gets the chance to make money. What we are asking for is a chance. What you are fighting for is a chance. And if we get this right, we are giving everyone that kind of, you know, equitable access to an opportunity. And for those who have been locked out of that for generations, equity means we need to have a different kind of support.
Yeah.
But I believe that there's a positive future available to us when we say you get a chance to make some money too, and that's what this is about.
Ooh, can I go in with another sort of hot, yes.
Yes.
Yes to that. And like, if we're doing spicy takes, right? Innovation requires failure. We hear like one of our investors, Doug Sung, who's an exited founder, very successful, who says that over and over again. But oftentimes, underrepresented founders don't have the opportunity to fail. But we know that you fail, you iterate, and like you will even hear him talk about one of his companies. He said, we were just able to move really quickly. We failed really quickly, fast, and we failed forward. And that iterative process is so integral to entrepreneurship. But if we don't give folks an opportunity, we don't create an ecosystem where if you have a failure that you're out of the game, that helps you sort of learn and grow and figure out sort of what the next opportunity is. And so, I mean, as an investor, we have to be conditioned to risk. That's a function of the job. What we have done a great job of for the past 35 years under my father's leadership is portfolio construction and sizing the portfolio correctly, taking the right amount of risk. But there's a freedom in being able to have that skill. And what it allows us to do is to support founders, to grow founders and to grow with them. And when you talk about like if you're looking in different places, I mean, so the automotive industry, right? I mean, I'm thinking about a new investment that we made into a company called CirqueNova, founder Crystal Brown, Black woman from Detroit, automotive background and experience, and now has created this like AI engine that essentially is helping to develop RNA therapeutic solutions for hard to drug drugs. The importance of that is that we're going to be able to really think about how we can address the needs of communities whose drug discovery has not been traditionally funded. And that's revolutionary, truly. And she is working really closely with our university systems, which are really, truly best in class in Michigan. I mean, we spend more than Harvard, MIT,
Stanford.
Stanford, I think even combined. So there's a significant opportunity for commercialization with our university systems, and as investors, that's something that we're excited to continue to be a part of. But that sort of mapping is what is allowing a young company like CirqueNova to experience significant growth in a short period of time. We're investors, there's other investors in the community as well. The MEDC has also awarded Crystal a grant as well. And so what you see in Detroit is collaboration happening to, where we can, and we're trying, like I said, every day to get even better. But when we find entrepreneurs like a Crystal that people aren't looking for in a city like Detroit, where they're not expecting to see biotech, like that's just one to watch. But that's what we do in Detroit. It's a gritty place. The people are resilient, and we just continue to make things with what we have, and welcome, everybody to continue to be a part of that with us too.
Incredible. Nia, you started to talk about it a little bit, but you have really deep ties and a very deep history in Detroit. Can you tell us a little bit? Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
This is the Michigan, this is my party trick since we're talking about Detroit. Michigan is shaped like a mitten. That's Detroit.
It's the simplest geography ever.
How many times have you seen me do this? Too many? All the time. I got a couple more left in me.
That speaks back to when we were 23.
UP's here. My friends up.
I love it.
That's amazing.
Yes, deep roots, yeah.
Yes, deep roots. Can you tell us a little bit about Union Heritage, which was founded by your father in, I believe, 1991, and then Union Heritage Ventures, which was, I believe, founded by you. Can you tell us just a little bit about the history there?
Yeah, so the firm was founded 35 years ago by my father, and I think as the story goes, when he graduated from school, he went to New York and went on Wall Street, and was trying to get a job, and there were roles available, but he wanted to run money, and there weren't a lot of people that looked like him that they were providing those opportunities for at the time. And so he came back home, he went to law school, and he built a law practice, and the resources from that business were essentially funding the investment management company. And the first client that he ever, institutional client that he was able to secure was the city of Atlanta. And the city of Atlanta had a black mayor at the time, and there weren't any black fund managers that were there. And he said, we're going to give you a chance, we're going to give you a chance to run some money for the city. And that was 35 years ago. There were no black managers in the city of Atlanta, and now there are 6.
Wow.
And so the legacy of this firm, Union Heritage, which the name is in sort of homage to my grandparents who were in unions, and on the public equity side of the business, we managed pension funds for union employees, majorly. And then on the private side, we decided to think, how do we take sort of this desire and the ethos of this company, making sure that working people have the same level of discipline and excellence with their investment, portfolios, as people who are just even most resourced. And so we've always been about the people. And I think that sometimes maybe confuses or surprises people with us and our strategy relative to Union Heritage Ventures, because from our perspective, we focus on non-concessionary returns, but we work for the entrepreneurs, we work for the ecosystem. There's a lot of politics in what we do, and I think the reason that we feel like we have the courage of our convictions is because we see the board very clearly, and we spent 2 years developing a strategy around Union Heritage Ventures before we even opened our mouths and said a word in the ecosystem. We met with founders, we met with elected officials, we met with we met with investors, and we really spent some time doing some network and mapping ourselves, and then thinking about what it is we wanted to do, what the legacy, what the heritage of the firm would be. And that to us was focusing on underrepresentation and our activism, our desire to want to create a more equitable ecosystem where more folks can participate and value can be generated in these companies comes from that. And so it's not something that I really started on my own. It was something that was contemplated in conjunction with my dad, in conjunction with Sophia, one of our general partners, in conjunction with our other general partner, my Uncle Louis Carr, who's supposed to be retiring from BT at the end of this year. Maybe this is my breaking news. Is this live stream? But the point of that being, after 10 years of investing alongside one another, making angel investments, we started to think, if the sum is bigger, if you're greater than the sum of your parts, how can we build a strategy that's really focused? And for us, narrow and deep was really important. And there was a lot of conversation around, why don't you do a national strategy? Why are you doing it in Michigan? Why are you headquartering in Detroit? And then for us, when we sat down, it was like, it absolutely has to be here, because this is where we think the most significant opportunity is going to be to generate value for the next 35 years, as we've done for the past 35 years.
Awesome. And you were involved more recently, or?
Always from the beginning.
Always from the
for
beginning,
two of us.
okay.
Yeah, because, not to age us, her dad called us out on this not long ago. He was like, you've been saying you've been best friends for 10 years, for about 10 years now. I was like, okay, Derek, shots fired.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for the math, data dad, but he's right. And again, there was, when we talk about opportunity to fail, even the immense privilege of being young women in media in our early 20s. I mean, not everybody gets on a TV show at 21 that lasts for 9 years. I was quite lucky for that. Nia was the youngest ever executive at Viacom, as we discussed at the time. And we had some money to play with. Granted, not a lot, because everybody knows women don't get paid what they deserve. We're working on that. But we had some more money than most of our 25-year-old friends. And if we could write a check here, or invest a little there, or create an SPV to get in on a deal somewhere, we learned a lot in that decade. And we did have the opportunity to fail. It was okay if you lost a $5,000 or $10,000 check, because one of the other ones you wrote might have really worked. You know, we watched our friends create unicorn companies. We gave them advice. We helped them figure out what their commercials should look like because we had media expertise. And suddenly we hit this point where running our own brick and mortar entrepreneurial venture in Detroit on Library Street, it was her dad, when we did this big keynote at the Forbes conference in Detroit, who said, you really need to own that you two are investors. And we were like, yeah, we know. we write our little checks when we can write them. And he was like, no. You have expertise and reach and what you've learned being advisors to companies, what you've learned on these sweat equity deals you do, what you've learned on the things that you've held investment in for over a decade. You carry levels of expertise, but you have to see it in yourself. And so it's been this really beautiful process in our friendship. You know, I've called her dad my bonus dad for almost 20 years now, to take our hunches and our storytelling and our work and really systematize it. And that's why we spent so long working on how we wanted to create the ecosystem of the fund in the first place. Because when you have Derek, who has outperformed, 97.8% of all other funds for the last 35 years, checking your work, it gives us an incredible, our data rooms are unbelievable, our processes are incredible, as the LG knows, but it gives us much longer kind of legacy than we have in our generation. But the family business of it all really has allowed us to be very measured and practiced and also very visionary. And as she said, to do these things faster after we've laid the groundwork. And it feels really exciting for us. And I'm incredibly proud to claim Detroit as my home away from home, being the only person on stage that is not from there, but really rides hard for the city, Yeah.
That's incredible. And I feel like this is I'm so excited. I know we don't have tons of time left, but I'm so excited to learn more about what you're doing and hear more about some of the companies that you're investing in. It just sounds like such a wonderful venture firm. But Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, I would love to hear, since we're talking a lot about Michigan, we're talking a lot about Detroit, what are some of the biggest growth opportunities that you've seen through, I think we were talking a little bit about MEDC earlier. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, first of all, Michigan is wide open, y'all. There are opportunities for us in so many sectors, and the team that we have in place through what you've alluded to, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, it's their job to let entrepreneurs and companies, big and small, know that they have an opportunity to be successful in Michigan. And I have worked alongside the governor to make sure that they have the space and opportunity to do that. And again, we are also trying to make sure that the government is playing the right role in terms of partnership. Because depending on who you ask, as an entrepreneur, they either want more government or less government, right? I want you here in this one way, I want you to give us some money, but I want you to regulate us too much. It's just complicated, right? But nevertheless, I think that things can be better when we recognize that we have a role to play. And so in Michigan, I think part of that means how can we take advantage of the unique assets that we have as a state and turn them into a platform for growth. So earlier today, for example, I talked about the Freshwater Innovation Center in Traverse City, Michigan. Michigan has a lot of water, like more fresh water than any place else in the world, 21% of it. So being good at water means putting in place infrastructure that can bring academia, the researchers like University of Michigan, the greatest university in the history of the world. Don't let anybody tell you different. But also,
That's fired.
but also, Michigan Tech University in the Peninsula and others. We can create infrastructure leveraging the historic Right Place institution in West Michigan in Grand Rapids that has created things like the New Community Transformation Fund, which is a venture capital fund that is focused on innovation out of West Michigan, that has backed amazing life sciences companies, for example, like Banff Health, which is going to be our next life sciences unicorn out of the state of Michigan, that has revolutionized cancer screenings and diagnosis and response. We have opportunities when it comes to ag tech and agriculture. Agriculture is the second largest contributor to the Michigan economy, and we have the second most diverse agricultural portfolio in the country behind the state of Washington, although we have better apples and better cherries. But,
Traverse City can confirm.
but our ag tech businesses and folks who are using and applying software and artificial intelligence to precision agriculture, to resource management, to carbon capture strategies in our agricultural communities. Like it's something that is really inspiring, really brings together a different intersection of different industries. And Michigan is really good at turning intersections into points of leverage and growth. We are doing that adjacent to mobility, but we're doing it in life sciences. We're doing it in ag tech. And Nia alluded to the productivity of our research universities and institutions, and we're working hard to make sure that there are clearer paths to commercialization for more of those students, more of those research professors who can then start that business in Michigan, who can grow that business in Michigan, who can attract investment in Michigan, and that means, again, as I said before, the future of Michigan is wide open.
And as we close, one of the things that's very exciting is that we talk about the tech sector, it's global, and being with the Consumer Technology Association, a lot of that were stories of just the coast. We have the auto sector in Michigan of many who are members of CTA, but for that story to include innovation and startups and funds and Detroit as the place to be, and our CTA story has been incredibly amazing. And as we think about our Innovation for All Fund, a $2 million fund, which we just added $5 million to, which was announced the other day, knowing that it's not just about the coast, and that if we really want true inclusive innovation, we have to include everyone, every state, and Michigan is an incredible example. Before we end, it's funny because one of the last questions would be, what advice do you have for other states? And he would probably say none.
Move to Michigan. No, I'm just kidding.
Like this. But it's an exciting story, and those are the types of stories we're trying to tell at CES. Innovation, you can find it absolutely anywhere, but you just have to be smart enough to look for it.
No doubt.
It's wonderful. All right, well, I know we're out of time. This was really an amazing panel. Thank you all for being here, sharing the secret sauce of Detroit and inclusive investing. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was very interesting. These two ladies are from Union Heritage. Never heard of them before. But this is what CES is all about. It's all different things. That's why the keynotes are all different things. It's very educational. And the last lady that spoke, I totally agree with her. Innovation can be found everywhere. You just have to look for it. That's what I do. C'est très intéressant. Comme la dame qui a fini la conversation, elle a dit que les innovations, on peut les trouver partout. Il s'agit juste de regarder. Puis je ne savais pas l'affaire d'eau. 21% de fresh water au monde, c'est en Michigan. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm telling you, we learn a lot with these things. Very, very informative too. Okay, so we're going to come back with another keynote. I'll be right back. Je vais revenir dans 5 minutes avec une autre keynote.